Let's take a look at AWS S3 Trigger, which is a common event-driven workflow. First up, we've got an S3 bucket here that I will put something inside, let's say an image, and then every image that's placed inside will generate an event. And this put event will then trigger a call of Lambda. So it's a one-to-one. For every image, a Lambda invocation occurs. Inside of there, we have a computer vision service called AWS Recognition that will generate the label. So if it's a lion, it'll find a picture, a label called lion. If it's a bear, it'll find a bear. So this is a very common computer vision workflow. So let's go ahead and take a look at how recognition works. First up here, let's say that I have a bear, right? It can go through here and figure out what it is. In this case, it looks like it's correctly identifying that. If I go through and I put a lion on here, we can see that it successfully finds a lion. So I'm able to look at those labels and then do something with them afterwards. So what we can do here is go over to S3 and look at the source code for how we would process that event. With Lambda, the way it works is that any kind of a trigger is processed inside of this payload in the Lambda. So if it's an S3 event, it'll be processed in here. So what I do is I write a label function. And what this does is it goes through and it uses recognition and it labels each of those items that's found inside of it. And the API call is quite simple. It's just recognition.detect labels, and then I need to pass it in the bucket and then the name of the file in the bucket. So how do I know about this? Well, inside of here, I say for record in events, and every time I get one of those files that's been updated, I go through here and I call out this label function, and I'm able to actually get back the response. And then later, what happens is that I'm able to process that event. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this in action. So how do we trigger this? Well, if we go to latest configuration here, you can see that there's a trigger section, and under this trigger, we can see that in fact, every time an object is created, this S3 trigger is set up. And so if you want to see how you do this yourself, you just say add trigger, go down here, find whatever trigger you want to set up. In this case, it would be an S3 trigger, and then put the name of the bucket, whatever bucket, and then decide what kind of an event. In this case, we want to do all creation events. So we know that that trigger is been successful, right? SV trigger. So what I can do is go to that bucket, and here we go. We have CV trigger. Let's just double check that that's the same bucket. So CV trigger 2020, great, that looks good. So let's go ahead and put something inside of here. Let's go back to this, and inside of this bucket, we can upload another image. So I'll go ahead and upload a lion image here. There we go. And we can say upload. And now what'll happen is if I go back to my Lambda function and I go to monitor, we can look at the log files and observe, in fact, that Lambda has been called. So how do we do this? If we go down to the logs, we can see that there's a timestamp, and that timestamp will eventually populate and show us that, there we go, this bucket has been triggered. This is the key. Okay, what did it find? And it found these labels. So depending on what kind of application we're doing, we could do something further with that particular workflow. So in a nutshell here, this is a very common workflow that's quite complex that AWS Lambda makes quite simple.